Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. So in this video we're going to be covering SCP-041, also known as the Forced Broadcasting Patient. So as usual I will go through the special containment procedure and then I'll go into the description, and then there's some added little tidbits on at the end. With this one, unfortunately there's no photo. Kind of makes sense as we go into it why there's no photo, so you'll just have to be looking at the gorgeous my avatar, gorgeous Scarlet here, or you know, if you have this in the background, carry on, do what you're doing. You don't have to worry about looking up to see what it looks like. But anyway, and as usual as well, I'll just be referring it to the number, so I'll be calling it 041. So we keep saying SCP, so it says me job, and it probably makes it easier for you guys listening as well, just make it a bit more enjoyable for all parties. So let's get crack-a-lacking. So 041 is to be hospitalised at Bioresearch Area 12. Though not key to class, should 041's abilities ever go beyond a reasonably containable area, the risk of SCP sensitive information being broadcast to the public remains too great of a risk. On warrants area level isolation away from the general populace. SCP personnel wanted to keep their thoughts private are advised to remain outside of a 15-metre radius from 041, beyond the designated red circle on the floor. It is beneficial to the mental health of 041 to have a sitter in the room who watches television and concentrates on its programming. This allows 041 to effectively watch television through the mind of someone else. The optional sitter is a Class D personnel with below average intelligence whose mind does not wander or have more than one train of thought at a time. Though not mind control, 041 has used its abilities to coerce sitters into watching programming that they don't enjoy themselves. 041's taste vary between gore and slasher films, having even expressed interest in snuff and children's programming. So, just to start with, this is one that should not be out because it sounds like it kind of can share sensitive information and private thoughts of the people around it, so I can understand why they want to keep it hush hush and hidden away, and definitely away from the general public. I kind of understand that one. And you would be a bit offended if you got asked if you wanted to be a sitter for it, considering that you need below average intelligence. You'll be a bit like, okay, rude, what a way to find out, yeah, I'd be a bit offended if I got asked. I'd be like, oh, okay, awkward. But yeah, that's quite interesting, and I personally like gore and slasher films, so I wouldn't be so bad if, you know, I'd hope to think I've got average intelligence, but you know, if I got, but then I've never watched a snuff film. I don't want to watch a snuff film, just to make that clear. I'm not into snuff. If you don't know what snuff films are, yeah, keep it like that, don't look it up. You don't want to get messed in that sort of stuff, especially if you're not into like murder and stuff. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's not something, if you don't know, ignorance is bliss in this case. But anyway, let's move on to the description. So like I said, it's not a photo, but the description is quite good, and it is, you know, it kind of paints a clear picture in your mind. So let's get cracking, and we all know a bit more about it and its abilities as well. So 041 is a human male suffering from irreversible damage to his central nervous system, which is believed to have been caused by an infection of a rare strain of bacterial meningitis. Although antibiotics were successful in clearing the infection, the membrane surrounding his brain and spinal cord had reacted to the infection by severing many neurons connected to the central nervous system to the rest of the body. 041 must rely on a respirator to sustain his breathing, and a pacemaker to keep his heart beating, and a nasogastric tube to provide nutrition. Don't worry, I will be leaving a link to this in the description, but basically, because there are a lot of big words there, I forgot about those big words, so I do apologise there. I know I butchered them, but basically he has a machine to help him breathe, a pacemaker for his heart to keep his ticker ticking, and he has a tube to provide nutrition. So it seems like he can't eat properly, breathe by himself, or, you know, have his heart working by himself. So, and this was all caused by a rare strain of bacterial meningitis. So that is why you should be on a lookout for meningitis. So there we go. So let's carry on anyway. Visibly, 041 appears to be in a persistent vegetative state. However, observers in the presence of 041 began to realise that their thoughts, along with everyone else's in about 10-metre radius from 041, are broadcast in a semi-audible fashion. Aside from being the source, 041 is also capable of broadcasting his own thoughts to those present. Anyone forming an idea using words will have those thoughts unwillingly transmitted to others in this range as mind-audible speech, which cannot be recorded by any known equipment. Mind-audible speech may be heard using whatever voice a subject chooses to think with. Most typically, this is a subject's normal voice. So that is quite an interesting one. So instead of it being broadcast like a speaker or something like that, you'd hear it directly in your mind, and you'd most likely hear it in your own voice. That would mess with your mind, that would. Because you'd be like, well, what would I think about that? Especially if it's something really random. But that is quite an interesting one. It's quite interesting how it looks like, the pulsar does look like it can move and stuff, being in a vegetative state. So that's quite an interesting one. But let's carry on. So, visual thoughts and images are broadcast as well, but are not received as readily. Images are most effectively transmitted when both the sender and receiver have their eyes closed. The sender concentrates on a single object without environmental background, and the receiver's mind is clear of conscious thoughts. Communication between subjects using visual images, particularly those not rooted in memory but in imagination, is usually difficult. The sender typically has trouble receiving a highly detailed mental object from a single point of view, while the receiver will often try to fill in gaps of missing information, ultimately resulting in the receiver seeing a different image from what was sent. The most difficult imagery to be successfully broadcast appears to be a person's face, particularly if the image is one of a person in motion. So that's quite cool that you can do images. It seems like it'd be a bit more effort to do the images, but it would be possible. But I can understand it a bit, like with when it says that, it's difficult for the receiver to do it if they don't have the full information, so the brain will just kind of fill in that information. Because I've kind of heard about that, especially in my previous videos when I was looking at the psychological sort of stuff, because of my interests anyway. I don't have any qualifications or anything like that. I haven't done any formal courses, just a heads up, so I'm talking rubbish. This is just what I've read about myself, just out of hobby, interest, whatever you want to call it. I have heard that when the brain doesn't have full information, that it does kind of just fill in the blanks. So that is quite an interesting thing. But yeah, that would mess with your mind though, wouldn't it? Having a really seemingly random thought just pop into your head, it would mess with you. I would imagine anyway. Not that talking as if it's happened to me, it hasn't. It would be quite cool, a bit unnerving, of like what the hell's going on, but still cool. But anyway, I digress. Let's carry on. Although able to transmit his thoughts to others, 041 is not very talkative. Attempts to persuade 041 to divulge any information about his abilities has been so far fruitless. 041 is typically silent and only will not respond to any direct attempts at communication. However, 041 appears to have a sense of humour, and he interjects occasional comments into conversations of others. So he's a strong silent type. That is a bit annoying that he won't tell us how he does his abilities. But it's cool that they have a sense of humour, so maybe they could use that to their advantage. Maybe if you're a bit clever about it, kind of try and set it up, but you'd have to do it over 10 metres, over 15 metres, be on the safe side, so he doesn't read your mind and broadcast it to you to the other's mind. Yeah, either way, you'd be able to read it and stuff. But yeah, that is quite an interesting one. Bit frustrating how he won't talk and tell us about his abilities, but then I guess that ruins the fun of trying to find out. So now we've got 2 added little tidbits and a researcher's note. So let's go on to the first little added tidbit. So while researcher redacted was taking voice notes using a digital audio recorder, a fellow researcher was changing the television in 041's room. While the television was on a channel of static, disembodied voices could be heard filtering through the white noise. Attempts to record mind-audible speech with white noise generators and sound recording equipment have begun to yield modest results. Though most audio is garbled and recorded sounds may or may not be voices and are widely left toward individual interpretations. So there's progress going on being able to record it. So if there's white noise in the room and 041 tries to use their abilities, it might come through on the TV. So that is quite an interesting one, and I guess it's the only bit of proof that they've got that this is actually a thing going on. Yeah, that is quite an interesting one. It's a step in the right direction. But anyway, let's go on to the second little added tidbit. So it has come to my attention that several personnel have used 041 as an ad hoc she likes me not detector. This is one of the most appalling things I've ever heard. Are we safeguarded potentially will destroying objects, or are we in third grade? And that is by Dr. Klein, who I saw his name in other SCPs, so it's cool that they use that. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that was inevitable though, to have, for people to use it. It's like, oh, does this person like me? Does this person like me? Like, that is quite cool. I mean, come on, it's human nature. Like, oh, does this person love me? Oh, I've got a crush on this person. Do they like me? Like, yeah, that's quite a cool way of using it. To be fair, I don't blame them for that one. But anyway, we're on to the document now. So this is the last little interesting tidbit. So, the first time I was in that room with Kent and 41, I kept hearing this singing. It was this little girl's voice singing some kids song. It wasn't the TV, and it definitely wasn't radio. It was in our heads, So I think, if I was stuck in bed without anything else to do, I'd sing like a little girl too. And then this voice comes into my head. Hey, it's not me. I don't know that tune. And then old Kent looks at me, gone all white in the face, or looks like good old Kent. May know a kid song. So yeah, that's quite an interesting sort of one too. But yeah, so that is 041, the Force Broadcasting Patient. So I hope you all enjoyed, and let me know what you think in the comments, and tell me, would you want your thoughts broadcasted? Me personally, I think some really random stuff, like my brain is so very random, and no doubt people will be worried about me if they could hear my thoughts. They'll be like, how has she survived this long? Why does she feel like think these random things? I think some things should be kept private. And my thoughts, I would not want to be with this patient. I would not want my thoughts broadcasted, just putting that out there. Like I say, my brain is very weird and random and works in mysterious ways, and I think I would be locked up. I'd have loads of people worried about me, and like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, nothing dangerous, it's just like, from a sanity point of view, they're like, yeah, she's got a screw loose or something. But yeah, got weird and wonderful thoughts going on in my little brain going on. But yeah, but anyway, hope you all enjoyed. If you did, drop a like, it really helps me out. It helps me know if you guys enjoy the videos or not. If you have any suggestions for any future videos, be it SCP related or anything else that you just fancy me researching and having a chat about, just hear me rambling on about, then let me know. You can let me know in the comments below. That'd be the quickest and easiest way, or you can let me know on my socials, which I'll leave in the description below. I am chronically online, so I'll check them daily, and I'll be able to get back to you. And also, there is my email address in my YouTube bio. You can pop me an email, why not? I check that daily as well. And yeah, and I guess, oh yeah, and just before I go, I will be leaving a link to this full one, so you can read it as well for you, especially with the big words that I could not pronounce and I just butchered. But yeah, so with all that being said, I shall see you all in the next one.